I'm sorry, I'm adjusting this. You'll have to cut it out.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and I'd say with very great humility that I'd like to express my very sincere thanks to President here, Dr. Miller, Dr. Weiner, Chairman Souter, Dr. Chevalier, Dr. Whitgrove, Dr. Higa. It's a very, very special honor for me to be here with these great leaders in bariatric surgery. I think as we look around, we are seeing the true lions of bariatric surgery. Today, my fellow colleagues in bariatric surgery, I think we will see an exciting discussion, maybe a bit of what we call fireworks as we discuss. But I would remind you and remind myself that all of us are working for the care of our patients. If we are passionate about what we believe, I think that's an indication of our concern for the outcomes of the patients who put their health and their lives in our hands. But at the end of the day, all of us are working together against the same adversary. All of us are one family. All of us want our patients to do well. And so with that, I would like to begin my presentation. And I'd like to give you a bit of background because my presentation was selected and the title was modified. The title of the abstract I submitted is the mini gastric bypass outperforms the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass as measured by length of stay. And it's been modified to advantages, which I think is a little bit less confrontational. And so I'll certainly follow that. But the primary research in which we wanted to present was the information that basically said we are looking at length of stay as one of the quality measures. Now, internally, when we evaluate the mini gastric bypass, we have built a 30-point multidimensional performance assessment tool. Length of stay by itself is really a grossly inadequate measure. On the other hand, length of stay is an important measure, and so we thought that this research was worth presenting. Briefly, I'll present those results and have hopefully a short presentation on the actual research, because my bias is that the group this morning would prefer more a question and answer about some of the other more practical details of the mini gastric bypass. But basically there's a bit of background in that in the United States there is a corporation called Milliman and Robertson that determines in large part how much money is paid to hospitals and also to physicians for doing surgery, and in particular for doing the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. And earlier in the year they decided that they would decrease what's called the goal length of stay for the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass to 1 day. Depending on the hospital, insurance company, and things like that, that could be as much as a 50% decrease in the payment for Roux-en-Y in the United States. In response to that, Dr. Wolf, Blackstone, Morton, Ponce, Nguyen, and Egan wrote a pretty powerful letter back to that company saying that an attempt to cut that kind of length of stay for the Roux-en-Y, said there would be no data for it, it would be radical, and it would be dangerous. The length of stay that Milliman and Robertson suggested is a 1 day stay. And interestingly, the mini gastric bypass in my series of over 6,000 patients, followed now for over 14 years, the median length of stay is 1 day. And Milliman and Robertson got me in trouble in the United States, in part because they quoted my data to the Roux-en-Y surgeon saying that my results should be their goal. They did not take this well. So they produced a very nice analysis of 3 large-scale databases in the United States. What's called the National Inpatient Sample, an access to over 7 million patients per year. The Surgical Review Corporation, I think we should all know the BOLD database, which had access to over 250,000 patients. And the University Health Consortium, another very large, very well-run, prominent database system. And they analyzed their results, and they said, this is real good data. And this was in a letter published as an open letter to all the members of the ASMBS and to Milliman and Robertson with a plea, very strong language, that given these data, only a small minority of Roux-en-Y patients could reach a 1-day length of stay. And they suggested, and there's been a paper to this effect, that if you attempt to reach the goal that is reached by the MGB, that is by pushing Roux-en-Y patients out that early, there would be a marked increase in complications and potentially death rate. If the Roux-en-Y patients had a hospital stay as short as the MGB patients, it would be potentially deadly. Specifically, in the National Inpatient Sample, the mean length of stay was 2.7 days, and less than 1% had a 1-day stay. Surgical Review Corporation, 2.4 days, less than 1%. And the University Health Consortium, only 8% reached a 1-day stay, and readmission rate when they got to 1 day was 36% higher. MGB. Over 6,000 patients now, 14 years follow-up. Mean length of stay is 1.2 days, and the median is 1 day. And that is our length of stay for over 96% of patients. Recently, we have completed about 250 outpatient MGBs. And the other measures of the populations are similar. So briefly, what this research was about that I presented for this abstract is very simple. Measured by one arm of a multidimensional model, it's incontrovertible that the mini-gastric bypass outperforms the Roux-en-Y. Now, as we'll hear from Dr. Suter, there are concerns about other issues. But this, and in fact, many of the other dimensions of the tools that we use to assess performance demonstrate unequivocally that the mini-gastric bypass outperforms the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Now, I wanted to comment on some of the presentation that Dr. Higa and Dr. Whitgrove made, and Dr. Whitgrove and I had the great good fortune to be on a dais together in April, and he presented his information, which I think clearly shows that those patients who were from better programs, who had better follow-up, and watched the instructions of their physician better, had better weight loss. And his conclusion was, therefore, programmatic issues make an important contribution. As a mini-gastric bypass surgeon, I get phone calls from failed Roux-en-Ys every day. I get phone calls from failed lap bands every day. What I am told, and what my experience has been, is if you're a failed Roux-en-Y and you go back to your doctor, they may in either nonverbal or actually in direct verbal ways be critical, not encourage the patient, and frequently will discourage the patient in sometimes nonverbal and sometimes direct verbal ways not to follow up. That as we kind of heard in the last presentation, their failure of their Roux-en-Y will be blamed on behavioral issues. To see me in the United States right now, patients must pay cash. Insurance, unless there's quite a bit of fight by the patient, does not cover the MGB. So we wanted to know, why are patients coming to see me? Why would they choose to pay cash out of pocket to have a mini gastric bypass with Dr. Rutledge when their insurance would give them a free lap band or a free Roux-en-Y? So we asked the following question of about 1,200 patients. Have you any friends or family that have had a Roux-en-Y? About 50% said yes. And of those, we asked, how many are doing well? Obviously a very biased sample, but half of 1,200 people, around 600 patients, said that in their experience, the good outcome in a Roux-en-Y and their friends and family was about 30%. Now, my opinion is those patients are not encouraged to come back to see their Roux-en-Y physician. And over time, they fall out of the follow-up, so that the excellent study by Dr. Higa, which had a very limited follow-up, has over that decade weeded out, not intentionally, many of the failures of the Roux-en-Y. That's really all I wanted to present. I had one other issue. There was a question. We had a show of hands of how many people had done an MGB. Can I see your hands again? Thank you. Could I see the hands of those who might be interested in offering an MGB in the future? Okay. One of the things I'd like to emphasize is we feel that the MGB has many advantages. Obviously, that's biased. But we feel that my experience and the other surgeons who've been through the MGB, that there are many tricks and traps that could lead to problems. If you have any interest in starting an MGB program, please don't hesitate to contact, to call, email. Anything we can do to avoid complications or problems, we'd love to speak with you. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Robert. So now Michel Suter will tell us what is the omega